3, 2, 1. Did you do a clap?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Oh well, let's get started.
Looking back, the morning comes to find your face in your grass. Take the moonlight by the tail to any side you're shouting. What is there? It's just the same. What it's trying your crown. I'm spanning my grass, walking back so when my grass you're fading. I'm waiting so long. 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 I'm waiting.
Well, it's marked it on my thing.
That's alright, that's all that matters. All that matters. Hello everyone, and welcome to Dark Natter, the podcast where we are crushed and eviscerated beneath the horrifying, inescapable power of one man's ambition. I am John Richter.
And I'm Liam Martin, eating wine gums.
I was going to say, what you sound like. For some reason, it sounded like you were eating Rivita.
Oh, really?
I got that very wrong.
Very
didn't
wrong,
I?
yeah.
It sounded like a dry salivary chew, not a sort of a brittle one rather than a wine gum one. Although I suppose wine gums are quite sticky, aren't they?
Yeah, I've got 2 left, so it won't go on for too long.
It's all right. It's adding a new layer of. It's giving an insight into the listeners are getting to learn more about you than they knew before. What flavour is your favourite?
Orange, and green.
Controversial green. Whoa.
Yeah,
Jeez.
orange and green.
You're sicko. In fact, I consider wine gums to be like an old school sweet. They're not,
Well, let me tell you something. If you are going to get a pack, go for the supermarket's own brand versions. They're nicer than the Maynard ones. And that I've tested Sainsbury's, Waitrose and Tesco on that.
I'm getting mixed up between wine gums and fruit gums. Wine gums are still quite soft, aren't they? I'm thinking of those rock hard ones. Do you remember them?
Oh, yeah. They're good as well, yeah.
The ones you're on about have got that... They used to have that advert, didn't they, where there was that bloke going, "There's juice,
Yeah,
loose,
that's right.
I bet that's
Like
juice."
Russ Abbott style, man, wasn't it?
That's exactly it. Oh, as in a Scottish man
Yeah, babe.
with a... What were one of them hats? What are they called? A tam o' shanter. Anyway,
I finished me wine gums.
I was stalling, but this has gone exactly as planned. In a change to our scheduled programming, we were going to record an episode about something else, but then we both ended up watching a show, which we will explain momentarily what it is, and I think it's fair to say, loved it so much that we were just desperate to talk about it, so we thought we'd just do that instead. Is that a fair summary, Liam?
Let's just say I was berserk when you told me of the change.
It's very good. And so neither of us is really pitching it to the other. We're just both pitching it to ourselves, and it's definitely
Which
gonna
means
get in
it's
the Hall of
definitely
Fame.
getting in, yeah, exactly.
It's like, yeah, no suspense whatsoever. And that thing is, well, I'm saying it's a show. Of course, it's primarily a long-running manga spanning, well, it's been running for what? Nearly over 30 years?
Wow.
Which is unbelievable and is still going. Which has obviously been converted into anime. It's been converted into some animated movies and various video games, as you might be unsurprised to find out, because any manga seems to make it into those other formats eventually. And that show is, of course, Berserk, which you've either never heard of, or you might have heard of it as an often cited inspiration for the Dark Souls games,
Yeah,
I suppose.
and that's how I heard of it, and I think same for you. Am I right in thinking that?
You are spot on.
Yeah.
You are spot on. But basically, a bit like... I'm trying to think of other things that I've kind of stumbled upon through Dark Souls probably in a way Junji Ito, although also that was through Silent Hills.
Misery.
Oh, what? Just misery in general, not the Stephen King one, just sadness.
Yeah, sadness.
It's just grief. What's the word? Crestfallenness. Depression. Yeah, and Berserk is often people say it's a big influence, and it definitely is.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
You could probably count about 20 things that the Souls games have kind of just nicked from it.
Yeah,
to be honest,
definitely, yeah. And not just Souls though. To be fair, like Final Fantasy as well, 7.
Oh, you're so right. It couldn't be more. What's the word? It's not exactly been ripped off, but it's so heavily inspired some aspects of that particular, wildly popular game, Final Fantasy VII, that it almost borders on a bit of a rip-off in a way. But we'll get to that. So yeah, Berserk manga first came out in 1989, created by Kentaro Miura, who presumably is an old fella now, and he's still doing it, still churning out those mangas, and I think they've got over 40 million copies in circulation, so hugely successful and famous in its native Japan. I've read a couple of them so far. Don't know if you've had a look at any of the mangas yet.
Yeah, I've read just one so far, one volume.
I find it, I don't know, there's a lot of action and sword play, but so for that reason I find it a little bit hard to sort of follow as in its kind of graphic novel comic format.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. I think also because manga as well, if you're used to reading Western comics, manga's a little bit differently. You read from the back page, don't you? So already it's slightly confusing. Well, it's just slightly different than you would expect if you grew up reading, just American and English comics. So there's that, and then so you read the panels a different way, the other way round, and then as you say, with it being very kind of action packed, it can be a little bit, but I didn't really get that myself, but I can see what you mean.
And of course it's known as a series that is unfinished. And I've kind of moaned about that in the past on this show, that I don't really like watching or reading or consuming things that I know don't have an ending.
Yeah.
Because I want to know I'm going into a story with a beginning, middle and an end. So in some ways, that probably would have motivated me only to just read a couple out of interest because of the Dark Souls thing and then move on. But then, because there are a couple of relatively short anime series available, I thought, sod it, let's just watch them. There's one that came out in 2016 and ran for 2 series, which I stupidly watched first and enjoyed, as we'll get on to. And then that would have been it really for me with Berserk, like enjoyable thing.
Yeah.
But then you watched the 1997 anime, which is generally regarded as better, and it's amazing, isn't it? It's great.
Really good, yeah. See, I'm not sure how the sort of hardcore fans feel about it, but it's made me become a hardcore fan because
it's had that effect on me. I've gone from being a person who vaguely knows of the existence of a thing called Berserk to a big massive Berserk fan. I'll probably buy a t-shirt. And
we should probably say, for the sake of full disclosure, like neither of us, we've already said we haven't consumed everything there is to do with Berserk, but we've both played some of the video games. We've both watched as much of the anime as we can. Basically all of it. It's just really the manga we're kind of catching up on because we enjoyed it so much, and we've just been talking about it, haven't we, for like the last month?
Yeah, correct. And you're exactly right. So we're not professing to be absolute Berserk. We are Berserk about Berserk, but we are not expert berserkers yet.
But we just both enjoyed it so much, and
we just wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe to sort of explain, well, first of all, a thing we often forget to do, which is quite bad, is a big, massive, enormous spoiler warning.
Yeah.
So we will probably focus again on the plots of the animes, particularly the older one from the Golden Age arc.
Because that's probably the most important story arc from what I gather of the series. It sets up the whole thing, basically. Yeah.
The protagonist, the antagonist, what's happening, why it's happening. So I agree with you. From my understanding is almost that feels like the kind of must see or must read. Well, my advice to any listeners who haven't are not familiar with Berserk, stop listening to this, go and watch the 1997 anime. It's 25 episodes on YouTube, so you can watch it for free, and they're only about 20 minutes long an episode, so it won't take you that long to just binge it and then come back. And if you've just done that and now you're back, we are now going to spoil the shit out of it.
And if you do like that, if you like it, then you're almost certainly going to want to read the manga, watch the 2016 series, watch the film. So, yeah, I'm confident that for me is like, if you watch that, that's the one that will kind of decide whether you're
into it or not.
Yeah.
And we've, I suppose now we're into spoiler territory, we can talk about what it's about. So, in effect, it's the story of a bloke called the Black Swordsman, whose real name, and this seems to be his actual real name rather than a nickname, is Guts, which is really funny. And I guess that's where I started. Like, when I first watched it, it's like, all right, okay, it's a massive muscle man with a ridiculously big sword, stupidly big, almost as big as him, about a foot wide. It's laughably huge. And of course, there's a whole, like, phallic thing there going on with, oh yeah, look at the size of my sword. And that's kind of, there is a whole sexual thing
massively,
bubbling under the whole
massively.
of the show. So Guts has got a massive sword. He's got one eye and one arm, but his arm that he's lost has been replaced by a sort of combination crossbow and cannon, which is handy, I guess. He lives in a sort of fantasy medieval type Tolkien-esque fantasy world, and he is seemingly pursuing a sort of one-man crusade of vengeance against a load of demons who are hunting him because he's got a brand on his neck.
Yeah.
And that's one of the first. We won't just keep ticking off Dark Souls comparisons, but even the brand itself is just incredibly similar to the symbol that features in the Dark Souls games. Even the design of it is similar to is it called the Dark Sign? Have I got that right? Or is it, am I getting confused with the Hunter's Mark in Bloodborne? Sorry, that's quite similar.
Yes.
Possibly. One or t'other. But it's, the thing is just a wash with, there's if you're a Souls fan and you watch it, you'll be like, oh right, it's that, and oh right, it's that. Anyway, so Guts he's a completely miserable bastard, isn't he?
Yep.
Sullen, sort of grumpy, churlish. What other words would you use to describe him?
Hard.
Big. A prick.
He is a bit of a prick, yeah.
He's not a very nice person, is
Single-minded.
he? Yeah.
Although obviously, when you get into the story there, you see him drop his guard a little bit at some points, and you find out why he's so single-minded.
And he does, he's a bit. I think he's a bit like Jack Reacher in a way. Gigantic muscle man, rock hard, sort of stands up for the little guy against the villainous kind of, not corporate, but you know what I mean, against authority figures, but also just borders on being a sadist. So,
are you saying that Tom Cruise should play Guts in a live action movie?
Hey, who would you cast as Guts? That's a great question. That.
Well, Tom Cruise.
Other than Tom Cruise, who's known.
And you could just have a normal sword because it would look huge on him anyway. Hey.
he could use a letter opener, couldn't he? Or like a Swiss Army knife. The sword is brilliant. It's almost one of the best things about it. Is like, I'm sure I can't even remember if this actually happens or if I've merged together some different scenes in my head, but I'm sure there's a bit where some pompous knight on a horse rocks up and he's like, "You there, peasant, what are you doing? You're not allowed in these lands." And, he's giving it that Guts needs to turn around and bugger off. And Guts just gets his sword out and chops the knight and the horse in half with one blow. That's the kind of guy we're talking about.
He reminds me a little bit of Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star, which is the only other manga I've been like really religiously into. And I think this is better actually, but yeah, he kind of reminds me a bit of Kenshiro, maybe bigger prick than Kenshiro in in the nicest possible way.
He's a real arsehole at points, like to the point of, like when you get that whole like, yeah, I'm really cool and sulky and broody, and then other times you're just like, oh no, you're just not a very nice person. You're a dick. So he's a proper anti-hero. But yeah, so if you start reading the manga or if you watch the more recent anime as I did, you basically see Guts having various adventures on his quest to, escape from / rid the world of these demons, and we'll come to some of them in a minute. But you don't get filled in particularly on why has he got one arm, why is he such a miserable bastard, what happened to his eye. There's loads of sort of unanswered things that are kind of alluded to in his past, whereas the 1997 anime series is a direct prequel. It fills in all of those gaps and it shows you exactly what happened and why Guts is in this situation.
And it does miss a lot of things out. Kind of, it makes sense if you take the 1997 series as its own self-contained thing. It makes sense why they have left certain things out, like the Skull Knight and whatnot. But for just a general kind of guide to Guts and Berserk in general, then it kind of tells you what you need to know.
Yeah, and in some ways, and again, this may be completely wrong, so if I do read the manga originals of this prequel, I may prefer those. But the anime just felt like such a good, self-contained, well-told story that I almost feel like it didn't... You know what I mean? It felt quite perfect to me in that 25 episode.
Well, yeah, because whilst it doesn't show how he escapes the thing that happens at the end, which we talk about, if they had gone with the thing that happens in the manga, then it would have been... They wouldn't have really been able to explain it anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they probably cut things for the right reason,
It's like that sometimes people get a bit hung up on, the film adaptation of such and such a book or game or comic or whatever is bad because it changed X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I don't mind changes as long as they're good changes.
Yeah.
So, random example, I think The Watchmen's movie ending is actually better than the graphic novel. Controversial opinion. But I don't mind a change as long as it's justifiable and improves upon it.
I think I'd agree with that, actually, about Watchmen.
It just was neater, wasn't it? Just a neater package, you know what I mean?
I think so, yeah. Made a bit more sense, didn't it?
I thought so. I mean, some other aspects of that film not as good, like the fact that you can see who the villain is in the opening scene when he's meant to be in shadow and you can just see his face. Like, what the hell? Anyway, sorry. We should cover The Watchmen on a different episode. So, Guts, in the anime, the first episode
Tom Bombadil.
That's who you would cast as it?
No. Is a good example of when they've cut something out that probably they were right to for a film.
Oh, from Lord of the Rings,
yeah.
Or The Hobbit, or whichever one it is. Yeah, but then they cut out bloody Saruman's death, which was a shit decision. Like, why did they...
Yeah, that was
Christopher Lee never got resolved. Really shit.
Well, he does
in
the extended version, but it's different to how it was in the book. But he does still get killed.
Apparently, in the original cinematic version of the Fellowship of the Ring, you could see a car going past in the background.
Oh, really?
Scenes, and they had to retrospectively fix it. Yeah.
Ah.
Apparently, it was driven by Christopher Lee. It was Saruman driving it. That's how he got away.
That's how they got to Mordor, wasn't
it? They just robbed the car. And, yeah. Why don't they just get those fucking eagles to carry him there?
Yeah, that's the...
everyone says that, don't they? Often cited...
if I remember correctly, they kind of explain that in the book.
Do they?
I think so. I'm sure Gandalf kind of says that you can't expect the eagles to do everything, basically. Like,
they only go one way. Everyone knows that.
Can't ask them to do too much. I can't remember. Maybe I've imagined that. I'm sure they kind of explain it, though.
No, you've convinced me. Where were we? Oh, yeah, Guts. So you get one episode of Guts hunting down some demon lord of a village, or he's ruling over some small hamlet or whatever you call it, and he's tormenting the people and they're eating them, I think, if I remember rightly, and he's like a real scumbag who's like he sort of comes across like a vampire, and he wears that snake-styled...
I thought you meant guts for a minute. I was going to say, what?
Oh, no. Do you remember in the first episode?
No, I know what you're on about. I know what you're on about, yeah.
There's a load of that in this. You know, suits of armour that are styled to look like animals?
Yes, yeah.
There's loads of them. This guy has like a snake.
That's
one,
right.
So it's like it looks like he's peering out from inside a snake's mouth. And then, anyway, Guts eventually gets the better of him and chops him to shreds. And then he just pumps loads of crossbows into his face, crossbow bolts at like point blank range, while he's giving him a big monologue about, you know, I'm going to wipe you from the face of the earth, you bastards. And it's like, whoa, this guy, he's sick.
And then, good introduction to, you know, what he's all about. And then the next episode flashes way back into the past, and the rest of it is told as a flashback, isn't it?
So it's basically, you know, how did Guts become as he is, including his massive whacking great sword? And skate over maybe the early details. He's basically just a kid who has a really troubled past. He's involved. Who's that guy Gambino?
Yeah.
Who he ends up sort of being looked after. Does he get rescued from a battlefield or something as a child?
Well, I'm under the impression that Gambino may have abused him in the manga.
It's not. I don't think that's clear in the film.
It's not.
The anime.
In the anime, it's like. See, I've almost forgotten it because I've watched so much and read so much since. But my memory is that he was always trying to kind of like prove himself to Gambino, and then didn't Gambino kind of get almost a bit jealous of him, or
and sort of betrayed him, and he was like, you know, I'm sick of you, you're a burden to me, I'm going to kill you,
and then he killed him to defend us.
He stabs Gambino in self-defense, and the rest of the band of brigands or whatever they are is like, that little shit, he killed Gambino, let's get him. So poor Guts is doing a runner on a horse, and he's only about, 10 years old or something at this point, gets shot with a crossbow in the side, falls off the horse, falls down a ravine. They all leave him for dead, and he sort of drags himself to some... Yeah, the next time we see him, as far as I can recall, is... There must be a point at which he meets that blacksmith, mustn't there? And I feel like that... Because that's where he gets the sword in the first place.
Yeah.
But then the next... So I feel like the blacksmith must rescue him and take him in as a wounded young man. You know, maybe he thinks he's going to be his apprentice or something, but he ends up acquiring this really big, solid... I mean, a lot of the sword play in this seems to revolve around whose sword is the hardest.
Yeah, that's true.
Like smashing... Yeah. Like, I don't remember that being true in any other sort of medieval type setting. Like, it's whoever can smash the other person's sword first, but Guts seems to have a rock hard sword. And yeah, the next we see of him, he's a bit older. He seems like he's almost late teens or whatever, and he's a mercenary by this point, and he's fight mercenary soldiers, so he's fighting for whoever's paying him and his mates, and he has to fight some absolutely massive knight who's just almost like comically large, you know, this ridiculous kind of suit of armour, and you know, much to the shock of everyone watching this famed knight, you know, Guts soundly defeats him and kills him.
Yep.
And I think it's at that point that he gets spotted. Is that the point when Griffith first spots him?
Yeah, well, it's worth pointing out as well that the knight he fights, that's your first kind of big Dark Souls reference, because it looks like Sigmar, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's got the same armour, the sort of onion-style, bulbous kind of rotund armour. Yeah, you're quite right. All the sort of inspirations keep coming.
Well, he gets paid, and then he leaves, and he's walking along, and the band of the Hawk spot him, and that snidey little one, what's his name?
Is it Corcus?
Yeah, decides that they should rob him of his money because he wanted to kill the Onion Knight, and then he obviously Guts just dispatches them with ease, and then Griffith comes down and
that's it,
and beats him.
Yeah, so in effect it introduces the Band of the Hawk, who are some sort of infamous mercenary gang led by this knight called Griffith, he in effect is the what would you call it, the general, the ultimate leader, and then his number 2 is a female warrior, a very beautiful female warrior called Casca.
Casca,
which you'll get if you do get into Berserk, you'll hear a lot of people going Casca lots of times. Everyone loves Casca and worries about her. And yeah, Griffith. Well, we'll cover the characters in a second. In terms of what happens, yeah, Griffith's men are a bit of an unruly rabble of sort of misfits and brigands that he's sort of cobbled together and plucked from the various sort of nefarious backstories to form them into this unit, which is a bit like Sharp's company in the, you know what I mean? It's like they're all like ragtag ruffians, but they're really effective. So yeah, you get people like Corcus, who's just a bit of a rotten kind of scoundrel. And then you get, there's that really big one called Pippin.
Yeah, Pippin.
Who's like a lovable oaf. There's the guy with the throwing knives called Judo.
Yeah, he was good, wasn't he?
Rickett. Yeah,
he's like the little
like
kid.
A young, like a kid one. But yeah, the most important characters in those we've just listed are those of Griffith and Casca.
Casca!
Sorry, I've got to pronounce it correctly. Casca is, in effect, a beautiful swordswoman who is incredibly skilled, fights guts, and is on the verge of losing to him, which is what causes Griffith himself to intervene. And Griffith is a handsome fella, isn't he?
By God, he is, yeah.
Whoa, lovely flowing white hair.
The White Hawk.
Beautiful, pretty face. The White Hawk himself. God, what a guy. It's kind of funny how perfect he is. Like, not only is he unbelievably, stunningly handsome, he's also incredibly talented swordsman.
Yeah.
Military genius. There's nothing wrong with him. No. And he's also like really kind and nice.
Nice, charismatic, and his followers, the Band of Hawk, absolutely worship him, don't they? They would go to the ends of the earth for him. He's that kind of leader.
What a guy. And like, even, Casca, she worships the ground he walks on because he saved her from a horrible situation where she was being, abused by some nobleman.
Oh yeah.
So horrible. So all of them kind of owe him a debt.
Yeah.
And that's how he's kind of put this group together. So he, despite Guts' incredible prowess with his massive sword, Griffith with his little rapier, little kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sophisticated sword.
Yeah.
He manages to, he defeats Guts in a fight, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But he's so impressed with Guts because you get the impression Griffith has never ever been, no one can touch him. He's so good. Like, there's a bit when Guts heaves the big sword at him and Griffith somehow manages to stand on it.
Yeah, yeah.
He sort of teleports onto the sword, which is quite hilarious. But then he points his sword at Guts' face and he's giving it the old, I've beaten you, this proves my superiority. And then Guts clamps his teeth
that's the
on
best
the end
bit.
of the sword. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. But
it's so hard, isn't it?
He's so tough and he just won't give up. Ah, damn you! He says to Griffith at one point, "You make me sick." It's like, because he beat you. So Griffith he dislocates Guts' shoulder to, officially end the contest. But instead of killing him, even though all his men are like, kill him, boss. Instead, they sort of take him in, heal him back to health, and Griffith basically is like, you belong to me now because I spared your life, so you have to join my band of the Hawk. And so he does, doesn't he?
Yep. And slowly but surely he, grows to, he becomes a part of the band, and he sort of cheers up a little bit, doesn't he, for a while?
You see him get I think he plays a pivotal role in some battle, and some of the other members, particularly Corcus, who hates his guts. Guts.
Lovely.
So when you do an accidental pun, is it better to acknowledge that it was an accident, or should you pretend you meant it?
Pretend you meant it.
I could edit this and pretend I meant it. No one will ever know. So Corcus, who hates his guts.
That's twice you said that.
And but he delivers, doesn't he? In this role, he slays umpteen. Can't even remember why they're having this fight or what the point of it is. But he kills a load of other knights, and he's very brave. And they're all, "Wow, Guts, you're amazing. Let's celebrate and have a toast to you." And he's all like, "Oh, get away from me! I don't want any friends." He's like a teenager.
And he like elbows Pippin in the face or something, doesn't he?
The guy's trying to carry him to his own party, and he properly elbows him in the face and bursts his nose.
But Ricketts the only one that, like, he was always really liked Guts because he was so impressed by him, and Guts kind of nice to him, and eventually he sort of becomes part of the band, and and
it's got that thing of, you realise it. Oh, we've seen Guts from a child all the way to now he's a man, and it's a couple of years later, and he's bigger, he's physically bigger, he's been training, he's in all these battles, he's massive, he's rock hard, his sword seems to get bigger as well. Did you think that?
Oh, definitely.
His sword's grown. And so, a big chunk of the series from this point is just the Band of the Hawk being engaged. There's two warring kingdoms, isn't there? One's called Midland, which is quite funny because it's, like the Brummy kingdom. And they're at war with what is it? Are they called Tudor? Aren't they? So it's not the Tudors and the Stuarts. It's like the Tudors versus the Midlanders. And the Band of the Hawk's been hired by the struggling Midland kingdom to try and mount a bit of a counter-offensive or whatever. And you get the impression that they do such a great job, particularly with Guts' help, that they start to become immensely successful. And there's a series of battles that they win with Griffith's incredible ingenious tactics and Guts' incredible, horrifyingly brutal, gory hacking the enemy to death.
Pure determination.
Which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And this is where we meet, for a little while, your favourite character.
Yep, Sir Adon. Just the best. Voiced by the guy who did Dr. Robotnik as well.
And he's sort of similar. Fat bloke, bit shit.
And he just keeps coming up talking about his family history, like, this secret technique has been passed down through 200 years of the, whatever his surname is, family's history.
Kobolwitz, I think it is. Kobolwitz. The Kobolwitz family have been guarding this secret technique for 300 years. And then his men are like...
And there's a brilliant one where he kind of feigns defeat and then fires a crossbow and then claims that was some super secret technique. I think it's like for 1,000-year-old super secret technique from... It's just brilliant.
Running away and then shooting a crossbow. That's the...
and he's in it quite a bit. He's one of the kind of main antagonists in this war. And... he gets beat every single time.
Keeps losing to Griffith over and over again, but manages to escape every time. The best one being he gets away from a castle, having just lost to Griffith, on a raft. And his soldiers who are in the moat, having been escaped, they're trying to climb onto the raft, and he says, "This raft is a precious family heirloom." Tells them they're not allowed on it.
So good. And every time you see him, he's a little bit more disfigured from the fighting.
Yeah, he's got by the end he's got bandaged up all over the place, and he's got another animal style suit of armour, hasn't he?
Remind me.
It's a fish. He's got his armour makes him look like a big fat fish. I don't know why he thought that would be good, but that's what he's gone for. What would you have as your armour if you had to have some? Do you have some?
Yeah, I probably just wouldn't fight.
You'd be like a pacifist.
I'd just do a coward, more like.
But you could be an Adon-style coward and still have the cool armour. You don't have to fight, you just wear the armour.
Maybe like a sloth.
Yeah, like a rabbit.
Yeah.
Like a cute rabbit armour.
Yeah.
Sir Liam.
Okay.
That works for me.
What about you?
I would... I'd see myself as being more as your attendant. So I wouldn't fight either because I'd be too busy snivelling and "Oh, here you go, master. Look the plans."
No, I don't know. I see you as a Griffith type character.
Well, that's almost the biggest compliment I've ever been paid. I'd have to get a wig and some plastic surgery, and so on. Well, or maybe not because we'll see where it ends up. It is worth mentioning at this point. A couple of details we have failed to drop in is Griffith's interest in Guts is quite clearly and obviously a bit of a love interest as well, as a mutual respect one.
Yeah. It certainly comes across that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's even a scene where it's like, oh, Guts, I didn't see you there. Why don't you join me in the shower? And he's like, no, leave me alone. And then Griffith's trying to splash him with water. It's really like homoerotic.
Yeah.
I mean, and we learn, don't we, that Griffith is yet another character who's been abused in his past. But we also learn that he got his Band of the Hawk started by sleeping with some creepy old nobleman to get money out of him. Who's like
still obsessed with him, isn't he?
So it's unclear exactly, and he comes back later as one of the villains. But so it's unclear whether Griffith is gay or whether he's been sort of, forced into sleeping with some blokes for different reasons. But it definitely strongly implies that Griffith has a bit of a crush on Guts.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a love triangle, really. Griffith loves Guts. Guts loves Casca. Casca loves Griffith.
Yeah,
that lasts for a good chunk of the show, doesn't it? As a bit of underlying tension.
It's also worth pointing out, though, that Griffith, as you mentioned with the sort of nobleman, where he kind of just used it as a means to an end, it kind of does the same thing, because the Band of the Hawk, they become more and more successful and they kind of rise through society, and Griffith kind of targets Princess Charlotte. We'll get to this in a bit, but again, you get the impression that does he actually see her as a love interest, or does he just see her as like a stepping stone? So it is very ambiguous. You don't know where his kind of feelings lie, if he has any.
Exactly, and it doesn't ever explicitly tell you as the viewer, is he a gay man who loves Guts, or does he just see Guts as a tool? Does he love Princess Charlotte, who he starts to express amorous things towards? So you're quite right. They become sort of, what's the word, like sort of duke, nobles, basically. The Band of the Hawk gets sort of promoted to the extent that he's got a place, and the other snobby king's courtiers are like, oh, can you believe these commoners have been promoted? This is disgusting. And they're trying to plot against him. But yeah, you're unclear whether Griffith actually likes the princess or whether he's just scheming. This is where you start to get the impression, and again, Casca, she clearly is sort of besotted with this guy, but he keeps her at arm's length, doesn't he? It's all a bit one way. He's quite a closed book.
Yeah, and you find out that his ultimate ambition is to kind of, rule a kingdom, isn't it? And
he wants to rule a kingdom, yeah.
And yeah, you start to kind of notice that actually he is very single-minded, and is he just using sort of everybody, really?
He's not quite as, he's not quite as altruistic and wonderful as he perhaps originally seemed, or still seems to all of his followers.
Yeah.
And one other detail about Griffith is that he has, and this is just weird, for a big chunk of it, it's just dead weird and out of place, because this is not in any way, this is a very sort of straightforward it's medieval fantasy, but it's very much sort of Game of Thrones, feuding kingdoms and human character. There's no dragons and all that kind of stuff. But he's got this little crimson egg pendant that he clings on to and doesn't really talk about. And it's got facial features, but all messed up and in the wrong order, like a nose and some lips and an eye. And it's called the Behelit, spelled Behelit, which is not a word I've ever heard before. And that's just a slightly odd thing about Griffith from his past that he doesn't really explain.
And he, when he was given it, wasn't it, there's a fortune teller who kind of told him he would, leave.
You're destined to rule a kingdom, but you'll pay for it with your flesh and blood.
And he's very dismissive of that, isn't he, early on?
Yeah. He's like, oh, this old thing?
He kind of laughs, he sort of laughs about it, but
there's something, it snags in your mind, doesn't it? Like, oh, well, if this is just some silly bit of jewellery, why is he clinging? Why is he always wearing it all the time? And then there's a couple of things that happen with that. One is one of the the king's brother, I think it is plotting to assassinate Griffith because he doesn't like how he's insinuating his way into the king's good graces, and he hires a crossbow wielding, assassin. And his plan is to kill Griffith with a poison crossbow bolt while they're out on hunting, on a hunting party with the king. And the guy successfully shoots Griffith, but the crossbow bolt is blocked by the bayonet, so he survives that attack. And that's how I think he realises that there's people out to get him in the court. And he deploys Guts as he's his number one guy, and he uses him as an assassin, doesn't he, to basically knock off some really senior... Ultimately, I think he bumps off the Queen. Yeah,
Griffith does, he burns them to death, doesn't he?
Kills the Queen, kills the...
The really shocking thing about the Guts assassination was that he... The guy's kid walks in, so Guts kills the kid as well. It's like, really?
Yeah.
That's like, shit.
And I think you're meant to get this sense that, like, Guts definitely regrets that and feels bad about it, but equally at this point, he's all in on the, I belong to Griffith, this man's incredible, I have to do what he says, that's my job, I am a guy's right-hand man, I do his dirty work.
Yeah.
It's almost like the story is Griffith's story told from the perspective of his henchman Guts.
Yeah.
Which is quite cool.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
One other thing I'll just quick interjection to mention is the soundtrack of this anime.
Oh,
any thoughts on the soundtrack?
Fucking amazing, so good. And I'm trying to get hold of a copy, but it's really expensive.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and it's like
I keep listening to it on YouTube.
Sort of shipping from Japan. Well, I just want it. Because I'm not... it might be on Spotify, I don't know, but I'm not on Spotify, I'm on Apple Music, and it's not on there.
Oh, okay.
So I think I would have to probably get the CD and put it onto my iTunes. But yeah, it's just... It's so out of place, but also it just kind of fits in perfectly as well. It's like Japanese kind of rock band, isn't it?
Well, I'd probably argue that the music in the show... is just really, really good, and we'll have hopefully used some at the intro of this episode, and we'll stick some in at the end as well if I can get it anywhere. But then there's the music, particularly the opening credits, is just completely jarringly inappropriate. I have no idea why they picked it. It's like a happy, up-tempo pop song sung by some Japanese bloke. It's just really funny.
So
and doesn't
good.
go with the show at all. But once you've heard it a few times, you just become completely hooked and just keep singing. If I can find it, I'm going to cut it in here.
Definitely, definitely.
It's a banger.
Yeah, it's so good. And like you said, though, actually, the music in the show is also genuinely very good. Guts theme. Can't remember what the other names of the songs. I think there's one called Fear. But yeah, just really good music.
There's one it always plays when something meaningful and deep and poignant is happening, and that's really good. And then there's something it plays when something horrible is happening, and that's really good as well. I just can't stop listening to it. It's ace.
Yeah, really good soundtrack.
Tell me what, tell me what, tell me what you want.
Yeah, it's really fun soundtrack. Very good.
So the Band of the Hawk basically rise up, as we've described, to the point where Griffith is... You think he's potentially going to marry the princess. He's knocked off all his enemies. You wonder whether he's going to, in that way, become the prince, potentially an heir to the throne, because he's killed off the king's brother already. If she's going to become the queen, he'd be the king.
It's certainly heading that way, isn't it? She's kind of infatuated with him. He's given her signs that he likes her, and as you say,
doing everything right.
Knocked off all of his rivals. They've won the war. There's peace in the kingdom.
Does Adon die? Does Sir Adon get killed? I know there's more credible baddies who also get killed like that. The proper general of the...
See, I can't remember if you see him get killed, you know.
I was hoping he was going to come back again.
I was as well, but yeah, I can't recall seeing him, but I could be wrong there, because like I said, I did binge a lot of this in quick succession, but...
There's a bit where he... Sir Adon, Guts and Casca end up falling off a cliff in a battle, and Guts has to rescue, because Guts is trying to rescue her, and then she's weak and needs protecting, which makes her angry and uncomfortable because she's not used to this and she doesn't want to be a weak woman, she wants to be strong. But then, and Adon, I think he has to sort of protect her in a cave, basically, and Adon has these 100 men to come and finally kill them, and Guts basically kills 100 blokes.
Yeah.
And I guess this is where Casca realises, oh, this guy is... Maybe he's in love with me. Look at, the extent he's going to try and save me.
Yeah, because they've always had an antagonistic relationship, haven't they? She's always been really resentful of Guts because obviously she sees that Griffith, likes him so much. But this is kind of where I think she falls for him, I think. And
Guts, fends off a staggering number, literally 100 men, and then this becomes the stuff of legend. Somehow Adon gets away again, but with, smashed open head and one eye missing and all his teeth. Gets all his teeth knocked out.
Yeah.
Just cool. And he unleashes one of his soldiers is called Samson, who's absolutely massive, who he reveals as his brother. He's Adon's brother, Samson Kobolwitz. And and you're like, well, why didn't you just have him earlier in the battle before you lost? you idiot. Anyway, so everything's going well for Griffith, basically, in simple terms. And then Guts decides he's had enough. He just decides he's going to pack up and leave the Hawks. He doesn't...
Well, he weirdly hears Griffith telling Princess Charlotte that... that weird quote when he's like, I can't be friends with someone who doesn't have their own dream and their own ambition. It's a really weird thing he says, and Guts overhears that and's like, well, if we're going to be friends, I want you to respect me the same way I respect you. So that's kind of behind his decision to leave and pursue his own dreams and his own goals.
Yeah, it's like until that moment when he overhears that, he had been thinking that that Griffith viewed him as an equal, because Griffith always treats him very respectfully and doesn't treat him like a minion. But I think he realised, Griffith does think I'm a minion. To him, I'm not an equal.
Very odd thing for Griffith to say, though. And did he know Guts was there? And was he? That's what I don't understand, because he's quite. He's shown to be very, very observant, isn't he, in court, because he knows exactly who is plotting against him. But
it was like a rare slip where Griffith actually spoke from the heart without any machinations or hidden agenda for the first time at all, and he just revealed himself as being this quite cold, calculating, sort of narcissistic psychopath, maybe.
But that obviously spurs Guts on to leave, which... Griffith, the band all tried to stop him because by this point, as we've said, they all really respect him, and
especially Casca.
But Griffith comes to try and personally stop Guts from leaving, so they have another duel. And
that bit's weird as well, isn't it? They're all there. It's almost like they're all wishing him a tearful goodbye. And you assume Griffith is conveying the same sentiment, thanks for all your years of service, goodbye, old friend. But then he just whips his sword out and he's like, no, you belong to me, Guts. You can't leave unless you win your freedom from me. And it's like, whoa, this guy's it's getting a bit possessive,
Again, which kind of points to the thing where, his feelings for Guts are slightly different than just, you're my underling.
Yeah, and then the actual duel they have, I thought was brilliant. It's like a proper tense, multiple close-ups on different characters, monologue, what's going to happen, still, a bit of snow drops off a branch, and then suddenly they both charge towards each other, and yeah, we're back to the old who's got the hardest sword again, and Guts chops Griffith's sword in half, doesn't he, and pauses with the blade, millimetres away from Griffith's neck, aka he's won the fight.
Yeah, and they're therefore allowed to leave.
And Griffith just kind of looks absolutely shocked and just kind of sinks to his knees in the snow, and Guts just gives it a sort of like, goodbye, and then stomps off.
And this is the real turning point in the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. And it turns remarkably quickly,
really
doesn't
quickly.
it?
So Griffith kind of just a real sort of emotionally devastated Griffith makes a real bad error in judgment for like the first time ever, and he sort of creeps into Princess Charlotte's room and kind of forces her to sleep with him, but she's very young and innocent. It's not. I don't think it is a rape scene, but it is. He's very insistent, forceful, and she goes along with it, and it's pretty uncomfortable, and it seems very out of character and a very odd thing for him to do. And you sort of see, I can't remember if it's the next day, and she's kind of lying there in bed looking all, oh, what happened? And he's sort of clawing at himself like he does, and he's like thinking about Guts. So it's sort of this weird mashup, isn't it, of like sex, Guts. He's devastated because he's left, or is he devastated because he's lost for the first time, and he no longer owns, this thing that he was in possession of has got away from him, and it's all very odd, like you say, sort of out of character decision that he's made to go to her in that way. Yeah, and of course they're also seen through the keyhole by one of her serving ladies, so it gets back to everybody. The king, basically, that Griffiths has had his way with his daughter, and so Griffiths is captured and imprisoned and tortured for treason. I think it was a year.
Jesus, and it's brutal, isn't it?
Yeah,
you see
because the next episode, you see what Guts has been up to, and he's been kind of living the quiet life, training and testing his sword skills with this family.
He's just chopping up logs
with the blacksmith, wasn't it?
Yeah, he goes back to the blacksmith and chops up a load of logs for some reason, and he enters some fighting compositions for a laugh as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Seems to be having a great time.
And then you find out through another character that now the Band of the Hawk is being hunted, because obviously they're seen as complicit with what Griffith did.
What Griffith was doing.
And they escaped, and so I find this really sad because they'd done so well to climb through society, and just how proud they were when they were at that sort of formal ball, Crocus, and really.
Like, can you believe it? We finally made it. They were also even the annoyance, the sort of miserable guy was happy for once,
and. They work so hard, and then Griffith does what he does, and suddenly he's captured, tortured,
cocked it up,
and they're runaways. They're just what's the word I'm looking for?
Outlaws again.
Yeah. So I just find that really sad.
I agree, and because all the thing is, other than Corcus, who is a bit of a dick, the rest of it, Casca, Pippin, Judo. Rickett, they're all just really nice, aren't they? So they all really deserve it, and they've fought so hard, and they're all such lovely people. It's you're like, oh no, I can't believe it's all gone wrong. This is terrible.
And you kind of think will they ever get it back? It's obviously they're gonna try and rescue Griffith, but will they ever get it back? And I don't know. It's just really sad. And anyway, long story short. Guts reunites with the Band of the Hawk, and they decide to go and rescue Griffith after, like I said, about a year of him being tortured.
And we, at this point, so we as the viewer have seen him being tortured,
Yeah.
and it's pretty graphic with some, little weaselly torture sticking blades into him. It's really unpleasant. And he's weirdly, they've got him strung up naked, but with his hawk helmet still on.
So you can only see out of that slight kind of...
Yeah. Visor. But you still, I think at this point, you might still believe, as the Band of the Hawk do, that he can be rescued and therefore everything will be fine. And he can take over leading them, and they can find some others. They might go and sign up for the other kingdom. They could go and...
Yeah, and once again, they can, climb back up and... But, alas...
it does not pan out that way.
Well, with the help of Princess Charlotte, actually, they are allowed to gain entry into the dungeon. And this is kind of... This back the time when we first start seeing more of the sort of supernatural stuff. So...
It's awesome. It's so good.
The first episode of the entire thing, which is set in the present, I suppose... you obviously see, a demon and whatnot, but for the rest of the series, in flashback form, you haven't really seen anything that supernatural. It's just been purely about the Band of the Hawk and, the kind of brotherhood they share in their success in battles. But then you just start seeing some of this sort of weird otherworldly stuff.
Yeah, just it's really good though,
really
and
good.
Griffith. Because for a little while, you might think it's just Griffith's head, because you see this bit where he's lying on the cold floor, having spent another day getting tortured, and a brick slides out of place in the wall, and this red blob monster, multiple-headed thing sort of scuttles in from outside and starts going "Oh dear sweet prince, you are soon going to leave us."
We wanted to see what they done to you or something. And they look a lot like the messengers in Bloodborne, I think.
Yeah, another inspiration, definitely. But you could perceive that as being Griffith is hallucinating because he's suffering the effects of torture. But then I think there is an actual demon appears in the forest and terrorizes some.
I'll tell you one thing we probably should have said. There is one episode where they do come across a demon, like a legendary.
You're quite right.
Nosferatu
Zod, which is a stupid name, but a very impressive fella, isn't he? He basically is able to defeat Guts in one-on-one combat. He's like an unbeatable war demon. But he appears, doesn't he, on some battlefield for no apparent reason.
Apparently the legend being that whenever there's bloodshed, he's there, sort of,
he'll rock up to enjoy it, and he batters Guts and Griffith.
Well, Guts kind of batters him. And then he transforms into his true form, his demon form, and then he batters Guts.
Which he's a bit like a big Minotaur bull thing.
And also...
But then he stops.
Yeah, he stops because he sees the pendant on the Griffith. How do you pronounce it?
I'm saying Bayolet.
Bayolet. Yeah, he sees that, and it kind of makes some sort of he even warns Guts, doesn't he? This man will be the death of you, that kind of thing. But he basically lets them leave.
Yeah, and that's another not a clue. It's another massive, very clear statement that the Bayolet is important.
Exactly, and that was quite early on in the series, and you don't really they have had the kind of supernatural stuff before this. But I'd almost forgotten about it by this stage.
Me too, completely. It's from way out of left field when this finale kicks in.
And there's just this amazing bit in the woods where you see, Paul Rickett comes across all these demons, and they're just so fucking creepy.
Hellish design, horrible, weird, really weird.
Really weird.
If I don't know if this has ever happened to you, it's happened to me. You're in a different country on holiday, and you see a big, massive insect, the like of which you've never seen before, you wouldn't see at home in the UK, and it's like a monster, like a fist-sized, scuttling, winged And you're like, oh Jesus, what the hell is
your
that?
Poor little brain can't comprehend. Yeah.
And it is a bit like that, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like some of the stuff in the woods, it's like one of them's like a sort of a butterfly, like a green moth person, but it's like eating people.
Because it seems, because Rickett by the water sees this like kind of butterfly thing and thinks it's a fairy, like so kind of follows it back to where the rest of the like wounded men were, and they're just being basically torn apart by these demons.
Chunked.
And you don't really get any closure from that, so you kind of assume that Rickett was killed as well. But you kind of find out if you read the manga, etc., that he actually survived. But
which is good
because I like him as well. But so again, this is like your second thing. Like, oh shit, this world. Like, what's going on? Why are these demons suddenly appearing? And then it kind of cuts back to the rescue mission, and they finally get to Griffith, and
this is where you realise for the first time how absolutely fucked he is. Like, he's skeletally thin, barely alive. He's had all the tendons in his arms and legs slashed so he can't stand up or move properly. He's had his tongue cut out so he can't speak, and he's basically gone completely stark raving bonkers and doesn't seem to know even what's going on.
And
it's devastating, isn't it? Remember how handsome he was?
Yeah, this is the other part. So the breakup of the band and the fall from grace of the band, that made me really sad. And then when you see the extent of his, injuries, and that was the other bit, it was like, oh man, like it's over, the dream's over. There's
no coming back from this. And Griffith and Guts is clearly completely torn because he's obviously angry and infuriated that this has been done to his friend, but he's also feels guilty because it's sort of feels like it's his fault for leaving,
because it kind of happened
and I forgot to mention that we should mention that by this point Casca and Guts have kind of got together, haven't they? So they're sort of like an item now, which is very fleetingly nice. But now she's going to be all torn because it's like her beau Guts is, she remembers how she used to feel about Griffith, and now look at the state of him, and it's kind of Guts feels responsible, so she feels guilt, sad for him. It just a whole emotional, horrendous, just a car crash in it for all of them, basically.
And then basically, so they rescue him. They're trying to escape. Griffith overhears them talking and just takes over one of the carts, maybe to try and kill himself. I don't know.
Guts basically single-handedly pretty much kills off all the King's followers who were trying to chase them, so they do escape. And then Griffith, as you say, does a runner in like a wagon. He's like using his teeth, isn't he, to like pull the reins to make the horses go, because he's been all bandaged by Casca and he's all pathetic and shriveled and he can't move, and
the rest of the band haven't been able to like see him because it's like they don't want them to see him because it would just devastate them all.
The state that he's in. And then the car crashes in some quagmire. Oh, forgot to mention, of course, his bayonet has been torn from him by the torturer and tossed down a grid. So if there was one artifact that he felt might be bringing him good luck, it fended off Nosferatu's Zod and it blocked the crossbow bolt. Like, even that's gone now. He's just in with his bandages and his helmet still on and his just frail body, and he crashes out of the car, breaks his arm, and then there's like a little sort of stalagmite nearby just growing in the like the spiky bit of rock basically in the water, and he goes over to it as if he's just going to jam his neck onto it and kill himself. But then just at the last moment, and before the others can catch up to him, the bayonet just floats past like it's been washed away down the drain and ended up in this river that he's ended, so he gets it back. And that scene when he looks at the bayonet and all the facial features reorder themselves and then it starts screaming, that I thought that was amazing.
So good. I've got goosebumps thinking about it.
It's so good. And then the whole surroundings turn to like a blood-soaked hellscape where the ground and the sky seem to be made of people's screaming faces that are all knitted together.
Basically, it just goes, there's an eclipse, isn't there? Which we'd kind of, which has been kind of foretold, hadn't it, that something was going to happen at the eclipse. And and it just goes absolutely batshit crazy.
There's dead, monstrous demon zombie things rise up out of the water. This is just as Guts and Casca and all the others arrive to try and catch up to Griffith, and they're like, "What the hell is happening?"
And so they're all kind of been brought into this sort of weird alternative universe of hellish monstrosities. Yeah, it's just
demonic shenanigans.
Really great art design, just so good.
Horrible, horrifying. The demons are really disturbing to look at, and there's sort of 4, I guess, kind of big cheese boss demons that appear.
The God Hand, yeah.
Which is another video game reference, by the way, of course. God Hand on the PS2, which you got me into.
Great game.
Just to quickly touch on, if we haven't explicitly said. So yeah, Final Fantasy VII, a capable warrior with long flowing white hair and a surly mercenary protagonist with a massive sword. Like, that Final Fantasy VII has lifted its 2 main characters from Berserk, hasn't it, basically?
Yeah.
I think Griffith even ends up with the old one-winged angel armour in later stuff. Just like Sephiroth did.
I mean, you could certainly make a case that Cloud and Guts are very different characters, but the big sword, come on.
Yeah, there's clearly an inspiration there, if nothing else. But yeah, so the God Hand, the group of 4 demonic scumbags, have decided, or maybe they've always known, that since he acquired the Bayolet, or maybe he acquired the Bayolet because this was always the intention, that Griffith was going to become a 5th member of the God Hand, a demon prince, and he was going to join. They want him to join their sort of despicable, sinister gang. And there's that whole flashback, isn't there, about where young Griffith is he's talking about his dream and how he always had this dream and he always clung to it and he knew he would rule a kingdom. And then you sort of realise, oh shit, this is how it's going to come true. He's going to rule over a hellish demon kingdom.
Mm. And in order to do so, his band will have to be sacrificed.
Apparently, that's the rules. If you want to be a demon lord, you have to sacrifice all your mates. Says the demon handbook.
And you get that really horrible bit when Griffith, he can still choose not to sacrifice them. I mean, I think the demons could have just torn him up anyway, but he embraces it, doesn't he? And I can't remember what does he say?
I think he says, "I submit."
I submit, yeah.
But he before that, he's looking at Guts, and he sort of, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he sort of insinuates that it's almost like, it's all your fault. You came along and you distracted me from my dream and my path. So it's almost like, by making me have, whether it's feelings for him or whether it's just respect for another person or, meeting someone to whom he did not feel superior, just caused him to waver enough that he made a mistake. He made that mistake, didn't he? Which went and slept with a princess, which seemed like an odd thing to do, but anyway. And so it's like he blames Guts for his absolutely terrible state that he's now in, of being skeletally thin and unable to walk and speak, and just, he's never what's he going to be? He's just husk of his former self. And so he's like, fuck it, I'll take the demon, I'll take the gambit. Yes, I'll do it. I'll join you, kind of thing.
Yeah. Devastating. Sad. Yeah, really devastating.
And then all the Band of the Hawk, except for Guts and Casca, are horribly, brutally slaughtered by demons.
Yeah.
And it goes on for bloody ages as well. It's about 2 full episodes of watching all these nice people get eaten and mutilated. It's not pleasant.
And you don't actually see Guts or Casca escape, but Guts does, because obviously he's in the first episode. But you don't see that Casca... Oh, there's one other big thing we need to probably mention as well. Casca, Griffith...
Oh, the rape scene that occurs. Yeah,
so Griffith rapes Casca in front of Guts, which wasn't... I didn't think it was clear that that's what he was doing. I thought it looked...
But I guess that was maybe just toned down for the TV,
It looked like he was kissing her, looking at Guts like, look, she's mine now. There's nothing you can do about it. But
and his look says they managed to convey that perfectly, don't they? That he's like, I'm not doing this because I feel anything for this woman. I'm doing this purely because I know it upsets you. Ha ha ha! You know, you look what I'm doing.
And Guts at this point, like his arm, like his eye may have already gone by this point, but he's.
Yeah, he gets his eye gouged out by a demon, and his arm is being held in place by another one's mouth, and he
chops his own arm off to get out of there
her.
to get to it. So that explains obviously why he's got the cannon arm. And yeah, it's just a really brutal, brilliant ending though. Really good, horribly
brilliant, really disturbing. And the next time I suppose I did it in the wrong order, but in the other series, so Guts, one-eyed, one-armed, misery Guts, full of vengeance, hates Griffith, obviously. And Casca is like what's the word I'm looking for? She's completely lost her mind. She's like can't speak.
Yeah.
She's sort of simple-minded, for want of a better phrase. She's like a sort of mentally handicapped person, which is really sad as well.
Yeah. I actually went back and watched the first episode again after the eclipse, after it ended. And yeah, you kind of see, okay, well, Guts does make sense now. Yeah, he's a bit of a prick, but
I can sort of understand why he's not the happiest bloke in the world.
But still, still fighting the good fight, still sticking up for the little man, so to speak. But
yeah.
But yeah, so good and really devastating. I was really sad actually by the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because Griffith's he is not portrayed until the end. He's not a villain.
No.
You question his motives at times, and he comes across as a bit narcissistic, or possibly, you never quite trust that he is doing anything other than for himself. Ultimately, he is just lovely, charismatic, and his hair is so nice.
Yeah. And yeah, just really sad, but it just made me completely fall in love with Berserk. And as I say, yeah, we've both been reading the manga. We both watched the 2016 series. I'm not a big fan of it.
I can see why people slagged it off, because the animation's a bit ropey.
Yeah, the animation's pretty shit, isn't it? The first series, I think, had its moments.
I liked lots of things in the first series, especially that evil religious dude.
Yeah.
Was he Father Mosgus?
Yeah, he was a good villain.
He smashes his face into the floor 1,000 times a day.
Yeah,
to show his love of God.
And I think the second season, in the middle of second season, it was just shit. But it started and finished quite well, I thought.
And I don't know whether that could be a reflection of the manga. Like, I don't know if over its multi-decade span, whether it's gone up and down in quality. And I googled it, obviously, earlier today, when I was doing a bit of research, and it's like the creator has just announced that he's doing another arc is going to come out. And when you think, God, why don't you just finish it? Like, write an ending. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
that is always the worry, isn't it, when something goes on for too long, that it loses it. But I don't know. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of them.
Yeah, and as a thing in its own right, that 90s anime series is almost like a little perfectly horrible. But I would say, like, normally in a story, there's like conflicts and things go wrong, and you have to overcome. Basically, everything goes absolutely swimmingly for 19 episodes. Everything goes really well. They win every battle easily. No one dies. They kill all their enemies. And then just in the last 6 episodes, it goes completely, absolutely, horribly wrong. It's like a really weird structure for a story.
Which is probably why it's so devastating. Why I think the demon stuff is so memorable, and why the story itself is so devastating, because it lulled you into that kind of false sense of security. And even when Griffith was captured, as we mentioned earlier, I don't know about you, but I still had that belief that, they'll rescue him. And I kind of knew it wasn't going to work out, but still had that hope, man, God damn.
Yeah. And, I mean, it basically would be equivalent. We talked about Lord of the Rings before. Imagine if the ending of Lord of the Rings was everyone gets killed by Sauron, including Gollum and Frodo and Sam and Gandalf.
In just a really brutal way. But one person survives... Say Aragorn, And
No, can it be Sean Bean?
well, no, because he didn't die because nothing bad happened until the end.
Can it be Gimli?
Yeah, and then
Gimli
exactly,
survives.
and then he spends the rest of his life
With a gun
arm, mercilessly hunting down
orcs. I'm not gonna lie. Can someone make that?
That would be quite good. Yeah,
Gimli with a gun arm hunting orcs, and he's like giving all these quippy one-liners.
with instead of Griffith being the ultimate aim, Sauron being the ultimate.
Yeah, and he's like, I ought to kill you.
Hey, very good. Or actually, Frodo does use the ring, and like Griffith, he sort of sells everyone out and becomes the new sort of overlord.
He would have to chop Sam's arm. Yeah, use the ring to replace Sauron as an overlord. Chop Sam's arm off.
Yeah.
Have sex with Gollum in front of him.
Yeah.
And then Sam would have to be a one-armed, one-eyed revenge machine.
No, hang on. Who was the one Sam liked? The woman Sam liked? Can you think of her name? Yeah, you'd have to kill the gaffer.
This has gone very dark.
Let's have a look. What was her name? Rosie, that was it. So yeah, Frodo would have to have sex with Rosie in front of
Sam. Get Gollum to chop his arm off.
Kill the gaffer, yeah. Kill Gollum. And yeah, there you go.
I think that's a better ending.
So that would mean Sam would have to survive though, and Sam would be Guts.
Yeah, that's the best bit is the idea of Sam becoming like Guts, and he's like,
there.
Or Master Frodo, you bastard!
Yeah.
I'm gonna hunt you till the end of your days with my gun arm.
Oh, why'd you do it, Master Frodo? Why?
You're a sick man.
Oh, that's great. I like this.
Is Berserk in the Hall of Pain?
Now, I just realised at the beginning of the episode we didn't actually explain what the Hall of Pain was, because I haven't done a laugh this episode.
Oh yeah. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to deprive you of
That's
that opportunity. Right. You probably had one lined up. I reckon you put a lot of effort into preparing your laughs. So I'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
so here we go.
More effort than I do with research and whatnot.
So the Hall of Pain is, of course, our sinister. I use the word sinister too much. Let's come up with something different. The Hall of Pain is a hall of fame for only the darkest, murkiest, most depraved,
sleaziest
fictional creations, and only the very best, only the very grimmest of the grim will make it into its hallowed, haunted halls. And that place again is the Hall of Pain.
Ha ha.
That was worth the build-up.
Yeah, I think so.
Very good.
Before we sum it up, is there anything else we want to say about Guts? So, 97 anime series, brilliant. There are some movies which basically also retell the Golden Age arc, which came before the 2016-17 series, which is a bit meh. Video games, I've been playing some of those, the Dreamcast game, and we both bought the PlayStation 4 game, didn't we? Which is basically Dynasty Warriors. Bit shallow, with all Dynasty Warriors games, but kind of makes sense for... I think I don't know if you listened to the Bonfire Side Chat Berserk episode, but they mention, actually, this was obviously before that PS4 game came out, and I can't remember which one, but says... It would, like a Berserk video game, would work as like a Dynasty Warriors game, and obviously that's what happened, which is quite
a funny
nice
coincidence,
touch.
Actually.
Yeah.
I suppose I bought it even despite its painful £50 price tag, because I thought, being one-man army Guts hacking his way through loads of soldiers on a battlefield, chopping their arms and legs off. This sounds amazing, but I just found it really lightweight. Didn't feel crunchy and satisfying.
How many missions did you do?
Literally the tutorial.
Oh, okay.
So I need to give it more of a chance.
I think the next mission is better, though, because you actually fight, like you fight the Onion Knight, for example. And
all right then, okay.
There's a bit more to it. It's basic Dynasty Warriors. It's exactly. I used to be really into Dynasty Warriors when like PS2 first came out, and it's exactly as I remember it. So nothing changed. Okay. And it's fun in like a really shallow, turn your brain off kind of way. but it's never going to win any Game of the Year awards. But it is quite cool being Guts, and the Dreamcast game as well. I'm actually weirdly quite liking it, even though the camera is just fucking terrible. But it's really story driven, which I'm just really surprised by how kind of like the first cutscene goes on for about 10 minutes.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's also got like quick time events in it, which were kind of unusual at the time. This because it came out about the same time as Shenmue. Yeah, so it's just quite an interesting sort of curiosity, really.
Yeah, and there's a general consensus I've detected from the internet that fans of the manga think that it's none of the games or the animes or the movies have quite done it justice, and that it's this kind of classic that's never quite been properly realised. Although there does seem to be, the general consensus is that the 90s anime is very good and the more recent one is quite shit, but I still quite enjoyed it.
So there we go, there's Berserk.
Great characters, Guts, brilliant anti-hero, Griffith, really complex villain, what a character. Really strong female lead, Casca, who gets subjected to some bloody horrible shit by the end and that she doesn't deserve, and loads of really likeable other characters, and it's just, they're good. You should definitely watch it, read it.
Yeah.
Whoa. Buy the soundtrack.
And if you're into, if you like it and never played a Souls game, then play Souls as well. Or maybe if you've never heard of either, start with the Souls games. If you like those, go back and check out Berserk. You'll see how it influenced it. Yeah. Hall of Pain? Absolutely.
It's in. It's solidly in.
Definitely.
Although we might need to reinforce the door to stop Guts from breaking out and chopping our arms and legs off, which I wouldn't fancy.
Casca!
Liam!
So is that it then?
I think we're done, aren't we?
I think so.
Have we come up with any slick outro?
Nope.
Good. That's why I changed the habit of it.
I'll tell you what we should put in, actually. The voiceover at the beginning of the anime, who I think is the God Hand
the
guy.
brain one?
Yeah.
He's the main God Hand guy. It's brilliant. Yeah, the opening narration, the narrator's voice, really incongruous narration that doesn't make any sense until the ending. He is one of the demons.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm hoping to put that at the beginning as like the intro.
Totally, yeah.
So hopefully people have already heard that, but go back and listen to it again in context. Now you've got the backstory.
But yeah, just really good.
Go on, do it without googling it. Just try and do the quote just from memory. Just see if you can see what you come up with. It'll be really funny.
It's something along the lines of,
do the voice as well.
Is man tied to his own fate, or is fate controlled by the gods? Does anybody know what's going to happen? I don't. Now listen to this really catchy pop song.
And look at this egg.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about fate, isn't it? And what?
Yeah. Does man control his own fate, or is it this fucking egg? Yeah, that's basically word for word.
Basically, yeah.
Nailed there.
I also feel like we've got a couple of new characters we can use now for our skits, which we haven't done in a while.
Yeah, we haven't done a skit for a while. I would relish the opportunity to put. Who would you put? Which character specifically are you wanting to?
Well, you could have Guts. You could have Griffith. I think
he just shouts Griffith and Casca a lot.
And you could have Brain Demon. What's his name? He's like the head of the God Hand, isn't it?
Steve. I think it was Steve, wasn't it?
Void.
Oh, is that it? Oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. His name's Void. Steve Void.
Yeah, that's his first name.
John Void, like the actor.
Absolutely. So there you go. No outro, but you expect nothing less.
Speaking of fate, it is your fate to listen to a little tacked on bit that I'm going to record later where I try and persuade you to give us a 5-star review and follow us on social media and stuff. And then it is hopefully your fate to go and watch Berserk. And Liam, it's your fate to enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. And you.
Thank you very much. See you all soon.
In this world, is the destiny of mankind controlled by some transcendental entity or law? Is it like the hand of God hovering above? At least it is true that man has no control, even over his own will.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Yeah, I didn't end up putting that extract at the beginning, so I tacked it on the end. And as you can see, we got it pretty much word for word. Yes, hope you enjoyed that episode. We sure did. And we'll be back very soon with more dark, sinister, scary, creepy natterings. As usual, if you want to help us out, it would be great if you'd spread the word about the show and or leave us a 5-star review. And or contact us at dark_natter on Twitter, or at Dark Natter Podcast on Instagram, or send us a pigeon, not even a carrier pigeon, just a pigeon, just would be nice as a gift. Anything at all, and we would love to hear from you, and you will definitely hear from us in another couple of weeks. Goodbye, everybody, and don't have nightmares.